And now, a regular on this station, and certainly on this show, the Hall of Famer, the man whose podcast last week, Starkville with Doug Glanville, gave me a week full of content. I know for me, I pretty much reacted to that audio all week long. The weekend show, if you listen to me this weekend, there was a ton of takeaways from the Dave Dombrowski interview on Starkville. He is the one, the only, the Hall of Famer, Jayson Stark, joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Jayson, how are you today?
Ray, I'm great. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, and there's a lot that I want to get to with you about that Dave Dombrowski conversation, but I want to start with a guy that just is so much fun to watch in Zack Wheeler. I know you got a stat for us. I know you've got a little bit about the All-Star game coming up for Zack Wheeler. Let's start the conversation because we've had the debate, I guess, the last couple of days on this station where he stands in the pantheon of Phillies history. But when you watch Zack Wheeler, can you try and contextualize for people what they're watching every time he takes the mound?
Well, the stat of the week that I had in mind had more to do with all the buzz about Zack Wheeler starting this All-Star game in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of fun. I wanted to run through the Phillies pitchers who have started an All-Star game. You know, we won't count the 1950s Robin Roberts and Kurt Simmons combined to start a bunch of them. But why don't you think about this, Ray? Last 50 years, only 4 Phillies pitchers have been the starting pitcher in an All-Star game. And I wonder if you could name them. I bet you have a shot at 3 of them anyway.
All right. Starting the All-Star game. Carlton got to do it?
He got to do it one time as a Philly.
Wow.
Only once, 1979. I was shocked by that.
That's incredible. All right, so one time for Carlton. Halladay?
Halladay is the most recent,
okay.
2011. 2 to go. One of them was really memorable, although it was more memorable for the other starting pitcher that night than him.
All right. Let's see. Schilling do it?
Schilling did it. 1999, started opposite Pedro at Fenway Park the night that Pedro struck out the world.
That's right.
Kurt Schilling also participated.
All right.
And that leaves one more.
One more Philly to start an All-Star game. Let's go with... All right, so the most recent was Halladay in 11, so it had to be someone sooner than that.
In between Schilling and Carlton on a really fun Phillies team, but you would not think he would have started an All-Star game.
Man, a really fun Phillies team. You wouldn't think he started the All-Star game. I don't have it. Who are we going?
1993 Phillies, Terry Mulholland started the All-Star game in Baltimore, Maryland. This is a true story.
Really? I would not have got. We could have sat here for a while on that one.
I told you I thought you could get 3, but I think there's a real good chance Zack Wheeler could add his name to that list. If you look at the schedule of the rotation, it lines up perfectly for him. I would guess he'll go Sunday now, and then the following Friday or Saturday, and that means he could throw an inning the following Tuesday in the All-Star game, right?
Makes sense to me. And you think that's kind of where they're lining this up? Because I know there was talks about breaking up the lefties in this rotation. Did part of that maybe go by the wayside because of that?
I don't think the All-Star game is related to that. No.
All right. I just know they had that conversation, so I didn't know if they were trying to line him up. But it would be a great story. I mean, for him to start that game down in Atlanta, what it would mean to him. And
he's never won a Cy Young. He's arguably the best, most reliable, great starter in the sport. It feels like the kind of thing that the sport would want to recognize, that Dave Roberts, who's going to manage the National League team, understands is worth recognizing. I think it's really fun to talk to people around the sport about Zack, because I think if you asked 30 teams, you're about to play Game 7 of the World Series, who do you want to start it in the entire sport? 27 of them would pick him. I'm not kidding. Just because your confidence that he will be great and pitch into the 7th or 8th inning is higher than almost anyone else in the game. And so it feels like none of that has been properly rewarded. An all-star start could easily be that reward.
And taking him as obviously the anchor of this rotation, look at the big picture of the month that this rotation's had and just the start to the season this rotation has had. As you watch this group go about doing it, we keep talking, this is the strength of the rotation, this is the strength of the rotation. How do you contextualize what the last month, that month of June, was for one Wheeler? Obviously Suarez, we've seen Sanchez go at the level he is. Just when you watch this rotation, what does it make you think about as it relates to baseball history?
Yeah, I've been talking about this since spring training. No matter what flaws this team might have, the rotation covers up almost all of them on a lot of days, because I don't think there's a contender in a sport that's had a rotation like this. No Phillies rotation has had a better month since that 2011 team. And if you even take a bigger picture look at this, if they keep this up, they're going to have the second best earned run average of any Phillies rotation since baseball lowered the mound in 1969. Only the 2011 best rotation ever team was better. And, I mean, think about what that ERA would look like if Jesus Luzardo hadn't been tipping pitches and gave up 20 runs in 2 starts. Even with that, Ray, this rotation has the best strikeout rate of any rotation in baseball, the most innings pitched of any rotation in baseball. Opposing hitters make the softest contact of any rotation in baseball, and they've been doing it all with no Andrew Painter and no Aaron Nola. Just how we drew it up.
And exactly when you talk about if Luzardo hadn't been tipping his pitches for the season-long ERA, I mean, if you had anything close to the normal form of Aaron Nola, what it could look like for you right now. I mean, it's truly incredible what we're watching there in the rotation. You talk about it covering up some of the flaws, and that takes me to the lineup and the week the lineup has had since we last spoke to you. Obviously, Houston, and then they have the fun Friday night. For those that stayed up through that rain delay, you get to enjoy what they did to the Braves, and then the rest of the weekend. I don't know if there's been a team in history that is 6-game stretch where they had a 13-run game in there and still averaged less than 3 runs a game. But it was quite impressive the way that played out for them in probably a bad way for the lineup. What do you think about upgrades to this lineup, and how much are they going to address this lineup, do you think, come the end of this month?
Yeah, well, part of my job, I'm constantly talking to people from other teams, and I've been asking the question, who's a hitter who's likely to get traded who could change a team? And right now, I don't know that we even see one. I don't think Dave Dombrowski sees one. Again, not right now. And you mentioned that appearance that he had on the Starkville podcast. One of the things I said to Mike last week is when Dave tells a story about something that happened in his past, I'm always thinking, this is not a random story. This is a story he's telling because it could so easily apply to what he's going to do this year. And he told the story of the 2018 Red Sox team that won the World Series, calling up Rafael Devers because he was better than any guy they could trade for to fill that hole. And it's really hard for me to listen to that story and not see a parallel to Justin Crawford, a guy that Dave really likes. I don't mean to give the impression that the Phillies will not trade for a bat, some right-handed piece to fit into a puzzle. For example, Ray, I could definitely see a deal that they make with a team in which they get both a back-end reliever and a corner outfield bat of some kind. But I honestly think their 2 biggest mid-season lineup additions are going to be Justin Crawford and a guy named Bryce Harper.
And we'll get to Harper's health there in a second, but just to follow up on the Crawford addition idea there. When you look at this lineup, and we've talked a lot about the pop in this lineup, bringing up Crawford doesn't necessarily solve that. How do you think internally would they see his addition to the lineup benefiting them, I guess, from that perspective, in the perspective maybe they don't, right now the pop hasn't been what you would think for the group that they have out there right now?
Yeah, I mentioned to Mike on one of the shows that I did that, they're on pace to hit 50 fewer homers than 2 years ago. Now, we should put that into context. The entire sport, home runs are way down compared to 2 years ago. It's interesting, but it's real. And they need the guys on their team who are paid to hit the ball over the fence to start doing that more. There's no doubt about it. Bryce has to do that when he comes back. That's what he is paid to do. But you know that old expression, speed never goes into slumps, right? And Justin Crawford can really run. He's got tremendous baseball IQ. He's got a funky swing, but he does make a lot of contact. He's got a high on base. I do worry that guys who hit the ball on the ground as much as he does are going to struggle in the big leagues because defensive information and defensive positioning are so good and so precise. And if you hit ground balls in the big leagues right now, there's usually somebody standing where you tend to hit the ball. But he would add speed. He would add a spark. He'd add energy. And I think that's what Dave is thinking. I don't know when his time might arrive, but there's no doubt that he's in Dave's mind as Dave weighs lineup additions.
We're talking to the Hall of Famer Jayson Stark from The Athletic here on the Comcast Business Hotline. And you mentioned last week with Mike about when he tells a story, you listen. I went back and listened after you pointed that out, and I was very intrigued by the example he gave from 2022, where he felt that it was important for that team to make the postseason. So maybe they wouldn't have gotten rid of Ben Brown in a normal circumstance, so they traded for Robertson at that deadline, but he felt it was important for that group to break the postseason drought. With this group being on the precipice of a number of guys being up against contract years, my ears perked up. It's important for that group to do it that year specifically, and he was a little bit more aggressive with a guy he might have wanted to hold on to. Leads me down the path of, are we looking at a season where when we talk about being aggressive, I don't think Painter's on the move, I don't think Miller's on the move, but that idea of someone they would more than likely want to hold on to maybe could be on the way out because of just the circumstance we're at.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad read. I think when Dave looks at his team and looks at the sport, he sees a team that certainly has a starting pitching to win a World Series, and that no team would want to face. He looks around the sport. Tell me there's a great team. The Dodgers, if healthy, are a great team, but the Dodgers are not healthy. They might not ever get healthy, and no matter what you think of the Dodgers and what they could be, they almost got knocked out by the Padres last year. And if you look at win the World Series odds, there's something like a 75% likelihood that somebody else wins. And so Dave looks at all that. He looks at the window for this particular group, and I do think he's prepared to get a little bit uncomfortable in the right situation. I think one of the things I took away from the stories he told last week is he doesn't want to do that for a rental, not this time. He would prefer to do it for that back of the bullpen type guy who he can hold on to beyond this year. That's a little different situation for him. And has he looked into pairing that with a bat, a corner outfield bat? There's no doubt that he has. And so how is this going to go? He's shown no inclination from teams I talk to talk about Crawford, Painter, or Miller. Somebody told me a story about making a deal with him a couple of years ago in which Dave said to their team, I'm not trading this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy. You can pick anybody else in my system, and I will trade him for player X. Couldn't you see that happening once he finds that player X who's available? You know what I mean? I think that could easily be how this plays out. So, I mean, like, we've got Tayit, the catcher, in the Futures game coming up in a week and a half, and he's really young. He might not wind up being a catcher. He's really far away from the big leagues. That's the kind of guy Dave Dombrowski tends to deal for that big piece of the deadline.
Yeah, so you're saying basically those three look like they're the one, and that story right there leads me to believe, pretty much anything's on the table aside from those three going into this deadline. Now, one more thing for you, because we're talking about this today, because the fan base, I saw this yesterday in the reaction to what Harper had to say about his health, where people were like, well, if Harper's not going to be healthy, well, Am I going to be that aggressive at the deadline? Is this team, can I trust this team to be at 100%? Which one, if Bryce is telling me he's good, and Bryce played through this last year and still, hit 300, yeah, sure, the power numbers weren't exactly what they were for Bryce at the end of that season while he was dealing with the wrist, but he still had, the ability to hit 300 through it. I'm not changing my aggression at the deadline over Bryce Harper. What do you know about the health of Bryce Harper right now? And is there any inclination that would throw things off for the way they're looking to be aggressive at the deadline?
Everything that happens in the next 3 weeks is a factor in what they do at the deadline. It's been a little difficult to understand exactly what Bryce is dealing with. Ray, I forgot to go to medical school again this week, so I don't know exactly what to make of this.
I keep saying my MD is from WebMD, so I can't really tell you how healthy he is. If he says he's good, he's out there, he's playing. Jason, I can't do much more than that.
Right. So, look, let's think about what we know. That's what I try to do at times like this. He had this condition last year. He said it's the same thing. It came back this year. He never had surgery. When you listen to him talk, he's not denying that whatever he's been dealing with is still there to some extent, just not the same level of discomfort. Another thing that we know is Bryce Harper swings really hard. We now have swing path data on StatCast, and you can look at it, and it tells us Bryce Harper takes twice as many really hard swings as the average major league hitter. Twice as many. So wrist issues, that's what he's dealing with, right? Do wrist issues go away for hitters like Bryce? To me, that's an area of definite concern. But the sense I get is, Dave said this on the podcast, this is now in Bryce's hands, literally, right? Mm-hmm. How much discomfort or pain does he think he can handle? That's what it's going to be about the rest of the year. I just feel like if I were Rob Thompson, I don't think I would play this version of Bryce Harper 7 days a week right now. I watch how the Dodgers are slow playing every injury. We've just come off this period where I think we learned that with a condition like this, rest is really valuable. Am I right? So, use these Thursday off days they have coming up for the next month and get him an extra day on either side of it when you can. I think he needs that, and if he's playing, all but one game a week for a month, we'll have a better idea of what this is and what it means.
That's why it's a good time to have him back right now, because about a month from now, you have to make that decision of how aggressive you're going to be. Jason, even though you're not a doctor, I do really appreciate always getting the chance to chop up some baseball with you. Thank you so much. Look forward to having you again next week.
Ray, great to talk to you. Have a fantastic 4th.
You as well. Jayson Stark from The Athletic on the Comcast Business Hotline. Yeah, we're going to react to that last part right there. Load management? Baseball? There's no load management in baseball. Oh, but there is. Oh, there is. Are you all right with it? This is going to be fun. I'm Ray Dunn, filling in for Mike Missanelli right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Hey guys, thanks for checking out our video. If you want more from the Mike Missanelli Show, somewhere on this screen, there is somewhere where you can hit the playlist. Keep interacting with us.